Creating the presentation of confidence.
And welcome back to Training for Trial with our host, Robert Graff of GraffStandard.com, your attorney consultant and expert in courtroom presentation and confidence. So, Rob, we're doing a 4-part series here all about this, building confidence in your courtroom presentation. And I love what we're talking about here, the presentation of confidence. Tell me about that. What are we talking about in this episode?
Just because you feel that you might not be confident in the courtroom and can't meet your client's needs, your client doesn't know that. So create the air of confidence, create the feeling of confidence, and you will be confident.
Excellent. So let's go down the quick rundown of the 3 main takeaways, and then we'll go through them in detail one at a time.
Well, number 1 is to remember the cases don't start in the courtroom. Number 2 is learning along the way. And number 3 is if you feel confident, you'll act confident.
Excellent. So I know, Rob, you work with a lot of attorneys in a consultant kind of role with this Training for Trial program, and that a lot of the work is really about helping people feel confident when they're in that courtroom, and they've really got to do a good job representing their client. So let's talk about your first point here. Cases don't start in the courtroom. Why is that important, and how does that help people with their confidence?
Being confident in what you know is so much more important. Nobody goes to court. Let's say, and I'm thinking from a perspective of a senior attorney here, when a client gets hired, they hire the senior attorney, or when an attorney gets hired, the client hires a senior attorney, and then a junior associate gets sent to handle a case, maybe a small matter in a courtroom, and then the client says, hey, I hired you. You're the person I want because you're confident. You know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. This person didn't. This person was nervous. This person was anxious. So it starts before you even enter the courtroom. They hire you based on your reputation and based on your presentation when you have that first initial meeting. So being confident during that time is just as important. Being confident when you are working on settling a case is just as important. People don't just go out and file cases willy-nilly. Well, let me stop you there. Sometimes people actually talk settlement before a case is filed. So being confident that you know what you're doing will help your client and help settle that case. So it starts well before the complaint's ever filed in the courtroom, and before you'll ever make it to trial. There's going to be discovery. There's going to be depositions. All these things you need to be confident about. When you go to court, to the settlement conferences, to the pretrial conferences, you need to be confident with what you're doing. So it starts well before you get into the actual courtroom. And that's when it has to be, the foundation has to be laid.
Absolutely, and I love what you were saying in the very beginning too, that part of this is also about presenting yourself with confidence even if you don't 100% feel it yet. I mean, if you really are a new attorney or a very junior attorney, that your performance really matters, even if you're not feeling it. But then there's a lot of things you can be doing ahead of time to help yourself start to feel it, right? So, and I think that's part of what you're talking about too, that you got to start before you even meet the client. You got to kind of get yourself in the right mindset that I'm going to approach this with confidence and stay a step ahead.
Right, and especially for the junior attorneys there, they might never even meet the client before they go into the courtroom. So if they're not confident in their skills, what's the client going to think? What's the client going to think of your firm as you representing the firm in the courtroom?
So let's move on to your second point there, because I think it moves us along in the same vein. I mean, and I hope you've been enjoying this conversation that Rob and I have been having, but the rest of this conversation lives inside Rob's site. So come over to GraffStandard.com and look for the Training for Trial button. Just click that button. It's a free membership. Not only do you get this entire episode, but a depth of content. Rob has been creating tons of great information. It's all there in the Training for Trial section. So go to GraffStandard.com right now and click the Training for Trial button.